I'm the girl who used jealousy like a weapon. And everyone thinks I'm just another insecure girlfriend who couldn't handle a man with ambitions. They think I sabotaged myself through childish games. But there's something they don't know about what really went down between me and the team captain. My relationship with Blake is permanently damaged. Yes, but not for the reasons people assume. I'm not crying over lost love or regretting some harmless flirtation. The stakes here cut deeper than a broken heart. I destroyed his trust, cost him friendships that mattered more than I ever did, and exposed something about myself that I can't take back. People whisper that I'm manipulative, that I got what I deserved when he chose his teammates over me. They're not entirely wrong. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened, step by step. You'll understand why I did it, what I was really after, and the specific moment when everything I'd built came crashing down. Because the worst part? It's not the flirtation itself that ruined everything. Looking back, I can pinpoint when things started shifting. Blake and I had been together for 8 months when he made the varsity soccer team mid-season. It was this huge achievement he'd been working toward it since freshman year, training extra hours, watching film until midnight. I was genuinely proud. The night he got the news, we celebrated at this Italian place downtown, and he kept grabbing my hand across the table, saying he couldn't have done it without my support. That version of us feels like fiction now. The team had this tradition where new members had to prove themselves. Not hazing exactly, just an unspoken hierarchy. Blake threw himself into it completely. Weekend practices became Saturday tournaments. Tuesday movie nights became strategy sessions. Our Thursday dinners got postponed because the guys wanted to grab food together after practice. Small changes, individually justifiable. I told myself this was temporary, that once he established himself, we'd get back to normal. But there was this energy shift I couldn't name. When Blake talked about the team, his whole body language changed. He'd lean forward, animated in ways he hadn't been with me in weeks. The captain, Jordan, came up constantly. Jordan thinks we should try this formation. Jordan says I'm improving my footwork. Jordan invited a few of us to his lake house next month. I'd smile and nod, feeling something small and ugly taking root inside my chest. The lake house trip became my breaking point, though I didn't see it then. Blake asked if it was okay, not permission exactly, just checking in. 4 days with the team, no girlfriends invited. I said of course, absolutely, have fun. What else could I say? That I needed him to choose me over this opportunity to bond with his new teammates. That would make me the controlling girlfriend, the insecure one who couldn't handle his success. So I swallowed it. Told him to take lots of pictures, helped him pack. Then I spent those 4 days scrolling through Instagram stories of them on jet skis, around bonfires, playing stupid drinking games on the dock. Blake's smile in those photos was uninhibited, free in a way it hadn't been around me lately. I noticed Jordan in most of the shots, always at the center. Blake often right beside him. They had this easy rapport, this shorthand. Inside jokes I'd never be part of. When Blake got back, sun-kissed and talking a mile a minute about cliff jumping and midnight swims, I tried to match his energy. But that feeling in my chest had grown. It had shape now, weight. It whispered that I was becoming optional, while the team was becoming essential. I started testing small things, suggesting plans that conflicted with practices to see what he'd choose, mentioning other guys who'd shown interest just to gauge his reaction. These weren't calculated moves, not yet, just anxious scratching at a wound to see if it still hurt. And it did hurt, watching him check his phone during dinner. Seeing his face light up at messages from the team group chat in ways it didn't for mine anymore. The rational part of me knew this was normal. People have friend groups. Hobbies matter. Blake wasn't doing anything wrong by investing in his team. But rationality doesn't negotiate with the part of your brain convinced you're being replaced. 3 weeks after the lake house, We went to a team party at Jordan's place. I'd met most of the guys briefly, but this was my first real social event in their territory. Blake immediately got pulled into some heated debate about World Cup statistics, leaving me by the drinks table. I wasn't bitter about it. I genuinely understood he was excited. But standing there alone, I felt invisible in a room where everyone else had their place. That's when Marcus approached me. Marcus played defense, had this easy confidence, and a smile that lingered too long. He asked what I was drinking, how I'd ended up with someone as soccer-obsessed as Blake, whether I actually understood the sport or just pretended. It was flirtatious in that barely deniable way, towing the line of plausible deniability. And I saw Blake glance over from across the room, just for a second, tracking the interaction before Jordan pulled his attention back. That glance sent electricity through me. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen. I didn't plan what came next. I laughed at Marcus's jokes, touched his arm when making a point, let the conversation run longer than necessary. Nothing overtly inappropriate. We talked about classes, weekend plans, whether the pizza they'd ordered would actually arrive. But my body language was open, engaged, the way I'd stopped being with Blake lately, because I was too busy feeling anxious about where we stood. When Blake came over 20 minutes later, his jaw was tight. He slipped an arm around my waist, very deliberately, and Marcus got the message, drifting away with a knowing smirk. Blake didn't say anything then, but in the car ride home, he asked what Marcus and I had been talking about for so long. Just chatting, I said. He's funny. Blake's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, but he just nodded. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt powerful. For weeks, I'd been the one chasing Blake's attention, competing with soccer for scraps of his focus. Now suddenly, he was the one off balance, wondering what I was up to, who I was talking to. It was intoxicating, that shift in dynamic. So I kept doing it. Not constantly, not obviously, just enough to keep that edge of uncertainty alive. I'd mentioned that Marcus had sent me a funny meme. I'd talk about how helpful he'd been when I ran into him at the library. At the next team gathering, I made sure to greet Marcus warmly, to laugh at his stories, to be just friendly enough that it could be innocent, but engaged enough that it clearly wasn't. Blake noticed. How could he not? He started asking more questions about my day, specifically who I'd seen, what I'd done. He'd tense when Marcus's name came up. During games, if Marcus and I happened to make eye contact in the stands, Blake would clock it immediately, his focus fractured. I told myself I was just balancing the scales. He had his team, I had my autonomy. He didn't get to ignore me all week and then expect my undivided attention at his convenience. This was about maintaining equality in our relationship. But that's not what it was about. Not really. What I actually wanted was for Blake to fight for me the way he fought for his position on the team. To choose me over practice sometimes. To look at me with the same intense focus he gave Jordan's feedback. The flirtation with Marcus wasn't about Marcus at all. He was just a tool, a means to make Blake remember I was valuable, that other people saw my worth, even if he'd started taking me for granted. The thing is, Blake did start trying harder. He'd skip optional Sunday practices to take me to brunch. He'd text more during the day. He'd pull me close at parties, kiss my temple when Marcus was nearby. I'd won, in a way. I had his attention again. But I'd also started something I didn't know how to stop. Marcus began texting me directly. Nothing scandalous at first. Just jokes about classes we both took. Comments about team drama. Casual observations. I'd respond because not responding seemed rude. Like I'd admit the flirtation had been calculated. So I kept it light, friendly, just enough engagement to maintain the fiction that this was normal friendship. Blake saw Marcus's name on my phone one night when we were watching a movie. "You guys text a lot now," he said, trying to sound casual. "He's nice," I said. "We're friends." Friends. Blake repeated the word like it was foreign. "You know he's into you, right? Don't be ridiculous. He knows we're together." That doesn't mean he's not into you. I could have reassured him then, could have put his mind at ease, maybe suggested we all hang out together to clear the air. Instead, I shrugged. I can't control what other people feel. I'm just being friendly. The doubt in Blake's eyes should have made me feel terrible. It didn't. It made me feel wanted. What I didn't see, what I was too focused on my own insecurities to recognize, was how this was affecting Blake's position on the team. Marcus was popular, well-established, one of Jordan's close friends. Blake was still the new guy, still proving himself. And now there was this undercurrent of tension, this weird territorial thing happening that everyone could sense but nobody addressed directly. At practice, Blake started overcompensating, pushing harder, taking risks he wouldn't normally take, trying to outperform Marcus specifically. Jordan noticed. "You're playing angry," he told Blake after one particularly aggressive scrimmage. "That's not going to work in actual games. You need to get your head straight." Blake came to me that night, frustrated and exhausted. "Jordan thinks I'm losing focus." "Are you?" "I don't know. Maybe. It's hard to focus when—" He stopped himself. "When what?" "Nothing. Forget it." But I knew what he'd almost said. When he's worried his girlfriend is getting too close to his teammate. When he's wondering what I'm doing, who I'm texting, whether I'm actually just friends with Marcus or something more. I could have fixed it then. Should have. The power I'd been chasing suddenly felt hollow, watching Blake struggle under the weight of my manufactured jealousy. But I'd gotten so used to our new dynamic, him chasing, me holding the cards, that returning to the old pattern felt like losing. So I kept my distance from Marcus for a few days. Let Blake relax, then let the cycle continue. The breaking point came faster than I expected. Jordan threw another party, bigger this time, celebrating their win in regionals. Blake and I arrived together, but within 15 minutes, he got pulled into some elaborate toast involving the entire starting lineup. I wandered to the kitchen for a drink, and Marcus was there, clearly a few beers deep, looser than I'd seen him. "Blake's girl," he said, grinning. "Abandoned again for soccer glory. I don't mind. This is his night." "You're very understanding." Marcus leaned against the counter, studying me. "Too understanding, maybe. If you were mine, I wouldn't leave you alone at parties." There it was. The line crossed. The subtext made text. I should have shut it down immediately. Should have walked away, found Blake, put distance between myself and this increasingly complicated situation. Instead, I said, "Good thing I'm not yours then." "Good thing," Marcus agreed. But his smile suggested he heard that as a challenge, not a dismissal. We were standing too close. I knew it, he knew it. From across the room, Blake would see this and read it exactly as it looked. Intimate, secretive, inappropriate. Part of me wanted him to see it, wanted that jolt of jealousy that would remind him what he stood to lose. But I didn't see Blake watching from the doorway. I didn't see Jordan beside him, following his gaze, putting pieces together. I didn't see the moment Blake's expression shifted from concern to something harder, more resolved. What I saw was Blake pushing through the crowd 10 minutes later, his face carefully neutral. "Can we go?" "Already? We just got here." "Now, please." In the car, the silence was suffocating. Blake's jaw worked like he was chewing words, trying to decide which ones to spit out. Finally, Jordan pulled me aside. My stomach dropped. "Okay?" He asked if everything was good between us. Said the teams noticed tension. Said Marcus has been. Blake's hands tightened on the wheel. He asked if you and Marcus were seeing each other. "What? No! Blake, you know that's not." "Do I?" He didn't raise his voice. Somehow that was worse. "Because from where I'm standing, you've spent weeks getting close to my teammate, texting him, seeking him out at every party, laughing at his jokes like they're the funniest things you've ever heard." And I've been going crazy wondering if I'm paranoid or if something's actually happening. Nothing's happening, I stopped, realizing I had no good ending to that sentence. Just what? Just flirting with him to make me jealous? Just seeing if you could get his attention? Blake's voice cracked slightly. What's the endgame here? The truth sat in my throat, ugly and impossible to articulate. I wanted you to care. I wanted you to choose me over the team. I wanted to matter more than soccer. But saying that out loud would expose how calculated it had been, how I'd weaponized Marcus, how I'd put Blake in an impossible position with his teammates. I didn't mean for it to be a thing, I said weakly. But it is a thing. Jordan thinks there's drama. Marcus clearly thinks something's happening or could happen. And I'm the idiot who's been defending you, telling them they're reading too much into it, that you're just friendly. Well, you... He broke off, pulling into my apartment complex too fast. Blake, I'm sorry. I'll talk to Marcus. I'll clear it up. Jordan gave me an ultimatum. Blake's words came out flat, emotionless. Handle the situation or step back from the team for a while until I get my personal life sorted. I felt like I'd been slapped. He can't do that. You've worked so hard. He's the captain. He can do whatever he thinks is best for team dynamics. And right now, I'm the problem. My girlfriend's creating tension with one of our best players. I'm playing distracted. I'm bringing relationship drama into the locker room. Blake finally looked at me, and the disappointment in his eyes was crushing. He's not wrong. So what are you saying? Blake was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm saying I need to think about what's more important to me. This team I've spent years trying to join, or a relationship where you apparently need to flirt with my teammates to feel secure. The words hung between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. You're choosing soccer over me, I said, my voice small. I'm choosing not to let you blow up something that matters to me because you're insecure. Blake's tone wasn't angry anymore, just tired. That's not the same thing. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to make him see that he'd pushed me to this by neglecting our relationship. But sitting there in his car, watching him look at me like I was a problem to be solved, rather than a person he loved, I realized how badly I'd miscalculated. I'd wanted to make him jealous. I'd wanted him to fight for me, to prove I mattered. Instead, I'd made him choose, and I was losing. I should go, I said. Blake didn't stop me. I didn't hear from him for 3 days. No texts, no calls, nothing. I drafted a dozen messages, apologies, explanations, pleas, but they all sounded hollow. How do you explain that you manipulated someone's emotions because you felt neglected, without sounding exactly as selfish as you were? Meanwhile, my phone stayed silent except for one message, from Marcus. Heard you and Blake had a rough night. If you need to talk, I'm around. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Marcus had been a willing participant in this mess. Probably enjoyed the attention and the power trip of coming between a couple. Now he was sliding into my crisis like an opportunistic vulture. I blocked his number without responding. On day 4, Blake finally texted, "We should talk, coffee tomorrow." I arrived early, overcaffeinated and underslept. Blake showed up exactly on time, looking like he hadn't slept much either. We got our drinks in silence and sat at a corner table, the weight of unspoken things filling the space between us. I talked to Jordan, Blake said finally, and Marcus. My heart hammered. And? Marcus admitted he'd been pursuing you. Said he thought we were basically over, based on how you'd been acting. Blake's expression was unreadable. He apologized to me. Said he'd back off, that he didn't realize you were playing games. Playing games. The phrase stung because it was accurate. I wasn't, I started, but Blake held up a hand. Just don't. He took a breath. Jordan said if I can guarantee there won't be more drama, I can stay with the team. No stepping back, no probation period. but that means I need to handle this. Handle us. Handle us. Like we were a problem, a liability. What does that mean? I asked, though I already knew. It means I can't be with someone who uses other people to manipulate my emotions. It means I can't trust you the way I need to. Blake's voice was steady, rehearsed, like he'd practiced this. I loved you. Maybe I still do. But I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly wondering what you're doing, who you're talking to, what game you're playing. I was insecure, I said desperately. You were spending all your time with the team, and I felt invisible, and I just wanted. You wanted me to chase you, to prove you mattered. Blake nodded. I get it. But instead of talking to me, instead of telling me you felt neglected, you decided to cozy up to Marcus and make me look like an idiot in front of my teammates. You made me choose between my relationship and my team, and then you're surprised I'm choosing the thing that doesn't involve mind games and manipulation. Each word landed like a punch. I wanted to argue, to defend my intentions, to make him understand the loneliness that had driven me to such desperate measures. But sitting across from him, seeing the exhaustion and disappointment etched into his features, I realized my intentions didn't matter. Impact did, and the impact of my actions was sitting right in front of me, breaking up with me in a coffee shop, because I'd made his life untenable. So that's it? I said. Not a question. That's it. I thought the worst part would be the breakup itself. It wasn't. The worst part was what came after. Blake filed a formal complaint with the team's faculty advisor. I didn't know about it until I got an email from the athletics department asking me to come in for a meeting. Apparently, there were policies about relationships causing disruption to team dynamics, harassment concerns, creating hostile environments. Blake had documented everything: the timeline of my interactions with Marcus, screenshots of texts where I'd mentioned Marcus deliberately to make him jealous, statements from teammates who'd witnessed the tension. He'd built a case against me. A meeting was humiliating. A stern woman from athletics and a men's soccer coach I'd never met walked me through Blake's complaint. They showed me the evidence, asked if I disputed any of it. I couldn't. It was all true, every manipulative text, every calculated interaction, every moment I'd used Marcus to make Blake jealous. We take these matters seriously, the woman said. While you're not a team member, you've created a situation that's affected team cohesion and an athlete's performance. We're issuing a no-contact directive. You're not to attend any soccer events, practices, or games. You're not to contact Blake or any team members. Violation could result in further disciplinary action. I sat there, stunned. You're banning me from soccer games? We're protecting our athletes from harassment and manipulation. The coach's tone left no room for argument. Blake has the right to participate in his sport without intimidation or emotional manipulation from a former partner. Former partner. The words made it so final. I never meant, I started, but the woman cut me off. Intent isn't magic. Your actions created this situation. These are the consequences. I left that meeting in a daze. Blake hadn't just broken up with me. He'd made it official, institutional, documented. He'd turned my private mistake into a public record. And he'd done it to protect his position on the team, to prove to Jordan and the coaches and his teammates that he was serious, that I was the problem and he'd handled it. The worst part? I couldn't even be angry. He was right. Word spread faster than I'd imagined possible. In a small campus environment, a no-contact directive is basically a scarlet letter. People filled in the gaps with speculation, mostly accurate. I became the crazy ex who'd tried to manipulate her boyfriend through his teammate, the psycho girlfriend who couldn't handle her boyfriend having friends. The insecure girl who'd sabotaged a good thing through jealousy. None of it was technically wrong, which made it impossible to defend against. My friends tried to be supportive, but even they were baffled. "Why didn't you just talk to him?" my roommate asked. "Why the whole elaborate jealousy thing?" I didn't have a good answer. Because I was scared he'd dismiss my feelings? Because I wanted him to choose me without having to ask? Because some broken part of me thought manipulation was safer than vulnerability? All of the above. None of it justified what I'd done. The social fallout was brutal. Blake's teammates avoided me on campus. Marcus, surprisingly, tried to approach me once, maybe to apologize or explain his role in the mess. I walked the other direction. I'd used him, he'd used the situation. We had nothing to say to each other. Blake himself I saw occasionally, from a distance. He looked lighter, somehow, unburdened. His performance improved dramatically. I heard about it through mutual acquaintances, since I couldn't attend games. The team made it to championships. Blake became a starter. Everything I'd worried I was competing with, he achieved once I was out of the picture. That stung more than the breakup. Confirmation that I'd been dragging him down, that he was better off without me. I tried to move on, deleted old photos, unfollowed shared friends who posted about team victories, threw myself into classes and work, but the reputation stuck. I became a cautionary tale, the girl who played stupid games and won stupid prizes. Future dates would sometimes recognize me, having heard the story through campus gossip. Some thought it was funny. Some ghosted immediately, not wanting drama. I started therapy, finally. My counselor helped me unpack the insecurity that had driven everything. The need for external validation, the fear of abandonment, the inability to communicate needs directly. We traced it back to earlier relationships, childhood patterns, all the standard psychological excavation. It helped, incrementally, to understand why I'd imploded my relationship, rather than simply asking for what I needed. But understanding didn't undo the damage. 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Blake at a mutual friend's graduation party. We'd both known we might see each other, had probably debated whether to attend. The no-contact directive had expired by then, technically, though we'd both honored the spirit of it. We ended up on the same deck, drink in hand, nowhere to escape without making it obvious. "Hey," he said. "Hey." Silence stretched. Then, simultaneously, "You look good." We laughed awkwardly, and some of the tension cracked. "How have you been?" Blake asked, and he sounded like he genuinely wanted to know. "Better. Therapy helps. You?" "Yeah, good. Team's doing well. I'm starting next season." "I heard. Congratulations." I meant it. More silence. Then Blake said, "I'm sorry about the formal complaint. That probably felt like overkill." "It was necessary," I said. "I put you in an impossible position. You did what you needed to do." Blake studied me for a moment. "You really believe that?" "I do now. Took a while to get there, but yeah, I was manipulative. You protected yourself and your team. That's not villainous. That's just consequences." Something shifted in Blake's expression. Relief, maybe, or closure. "For what it's worth," he said, "I wasn't perfect either. I did get wrapped up in the team, probably neglected us. If you just told me you felt ignored, I know, but I didn't. I played games instead, and that's on me." I took a breath. "I'm sorry, for all of it. For using Marcus, for putting you in that position, for making you choose. You deserved better." Blake nodded slowly. "Thanks. That means a lot, actually." We talked for a few more minutes, carefully casual. Two people who'd meant something to each other, navigating the strange territory of after. Then his current girlfriend appeared, a cheerful junior I vaguely recognized. And I excused myself, letting him return to his new life. I felt lighter afterward. Not healed exactly, but less burdened. We'd both moved on. The wound had scarred over. But the lesson stuck with me in ways I'm still processing. I learned that jealousy is a symptom, not a solution. That manipulation always costs more than honesty, even when honesty feels terrifying. That making someone choose between you and something they love is a losing strategy, because even if they choose you, they'll resent the ultimatum. That people will protect themselves, and you can't blame them for it. I learned that playing games in relationships is just fear dressed up as strategy. That the power I thought I was claiming through flirtation and jealousy was actually powerlessness, a desperate attempt to control a situation I was terrified of losing. Most painfully, I learned that sometimes you become the villain in someone else's story, and there's no redemption arc, no grand gesture that fixes it. You're just the person who made their life harder, who they had to file paperwork against, who they remember as a lesson learned. Blake wasn't wrong to file that complaint, to choose his team, to protect his future from my insecurity. I was the chaos variable he needed to eliminate. And he did. I'm telling this story now because I saw a post the other day from someone in a similar situation, feeling neglected, considering flirtation to spark jealousy, asking if it's a valid strategy. My immediate response was visceral: don't. Just don't. Talk to your partner. Use actual words. Risk the vulnerability of saying, "I miss you," or "I need more time together," or "I'm feeling insecure." Yes, they might dismiss your feelings. They might not be able to give you what you need. The relationship might end, but that ending, the honest one, won't haunt you the way mine haunts me. Because every time I see a soccer game, every time I hear someone talk about relationship drama, every time I'm tempted to play games instead of being direct, I remember Blake's face in that coffee shop. The disappointment, the exhaustion, the relief when he finally chose himself over me. I made him jealous. I got his attention. I forced him to choose. And he chose the team. Then he chose documentation, official complaints, institutional protection. He chose to make sure I couldn't hurt him again. I can't even say he was wrong. That's the part I'm still learning to sit with. The fact that I was the bad guy in this story. Not the misunderstood girlfriend with valid feelings. Not the victim of neglect who went too far. Just the person who manipulated someone I claimed to love. And faced appropriate consequences. The question I ask myself, the one that keeps me up some nights: was there a version of this where I communicated honestly and we worked it out? Where Blake balanced team and relationship better? Where I expressed needs without manipulation? Where we both grew instead of imploding? Maybe. Probably. I'll never know. What I do know is that flirting with Marcus didn't save my relationship. It didn't make Blake love me more. It didn't prove my worth or his neglect. It just proved I was willing to play with people's emotions when I felt scared. And that revelation about myself, about what I'm capable of when insecure, was the harshest consequence of all. So yeah, I flirted with his teammate to make him jealous. He chose the team over me and filed formal complaints that banned me from his games and became part of my permanent record. And the truth nobody wants to hear? He made the right call.